So this is the episode Pause, which is also an episode that's banned in some places, and it's the Boondocks poking fun at Tyler Perry. And there are a lot of talking points, so I'll definitely go through this episode. That in the beginning of the episode, that Robert wants to be an actor for Tyler Perry, and there's a couple reasons why he wants to do that. Like obviously he is coming to terms with his mortality. He's kind of like, I want to be famous. I want to have all those white bitches and everything like that, really. So he kind of just, once again is, throwing his family under the bus and putting himself in a position that makes him feel very, very uncomfortable to get ahead in the film business and his acting business. And then also, like, when he works for, like, Tyler Perry, you see like kind of clips of Tyler Perry movies. So like obviously you see like obviously the bad writing, the typical story of a woman that is a Christian woman, in an abusive relationship with her husband, and then she finds attraction in another man, and then they have a relationship, and then that man they have an attraction to beats up her husband, and then they end up together. So it's ultimately like in a way cheating in a way that's kind of justified, because it's like, okay, why should you be involved with a person that's abusive? And then also you kind of see in a lot of the end of the clips that you see like Tyler Perry dancing, and I think that's kind of a metaphor for how he kind of almost steals the show a lot. When his other actors should shine, it's always really about him. Or it's like the John Cena, or it's almost like what people talk about with Jeff Jarrett or Hulk Hogan, when you watch TNA wrestling back in the day, where in the early 2000s it was always about Jeff Jarrett no matter what was going on. And then when Hulk Hogan was in TNA for a couple of months, it was about him making the company better. Then it came more about him and his storylines and everything like that. So there are people who do that in entertainment. And even like if you look at WWE, like when Triple H came back from an injury in like the mid 2000s, it was always about him. Or you always look at John Cena, where he never really loses unless it doesn't mean something. So the point of it is that you look at professional wrestling as an example of also an industry where, sometimes they try to put one person with backstage pull, or the company wants to put a person because of company pull, always in front of everybody else. And sometimes it gets obnoxious, and sometimes it's very clear that it's like, okay, well, that person needs to take it backstage because they have to let other people flourish. But it's almost like Tyler Perry tries to have control of everything, and even the success of people, by sabotaging people. And then I think the other thing that happens is it's very, very clear that Tyler Perry is either gay or bisexual. And he kind of talks about like how Jesus kind of appeared in dreams, and it motivated him to be a writer. So it's obviously, like somebody using religion as a front for his very toxic behavior that I'll talk about in a little while, but also like a front to say, I'm going to grab the Christian audience and other audiences because I'm for Jesus. Because there's people who will, as Cartman said in the episode, Christian rock music. I know enough about Christianity to exploit. There's a lot of people who exploit Christianity for profit, and one can argue that Tyler Perry does that. The next thing that you see in this episode is that they use the word pause and no homo a lot, which means if you say something that sounds gay, like you hug a person, you say no homo afterwards, or you say something like, my brother, like for example, my brother is fasting, so his stomach's gotten smaller. He looks a lot more healthier, and he looks a lot more healthier, and he looks like somebody that could attract somebody else. If I say no homo after that, what I said was a compliment, but in the world of Boondocks, I would have to say no homo after that just to insinuate that I'm not a gay man, or I'm bi-curious or something like that. So it kind of like illustrates a little bit of something that should be more deeply explored is Robert's homophobia and Huey's Riley's homophobia. Because there is issues of homophobia in the Boondocks, but it's kind of bad they don't have a character that kind of changes their values and just says, I'm going to tolerate gay culture. It's not just the stereotypes or the stereotype of the creepy gay guy. So I think that this was an unfortunate episode where they could have had either Riley or Robert learn to accept gay people instead of just having a bunch of stereotypes. The next thing about this episode that I would say is that when you see Granddad work for Tyler Perry, he does a lot of like manipulation. Like he obviously does that thing you see in psychology of acting like a good guy, giving you a lot of great things, being supportive, slowly scrutinizing Robert. And then later on, you kind of see his anger issues and him saying, spend 2 weeks away from your kids with no babysitter, flipping out when Robert's on the phone, forcing Robert to do a scene where it looks like they're kissing and everything like that. So, and that happens with a lot of like coercion where somebody's going to act nice to you. And then over time, they slowly become more abusive you don't, until you just tolerate it as normal. Like, I worked at a job where I dealt with workplace bullying and same thing, there's praising, there was extra money, and then slowly some tough love, and then until I was straight bullying. And then I worked in the film, and then with a 4-year film project, there was this guy, Sal, in Wallingford that I used to work with, and same idea, like, taking me out to dinner, like, always being awarding, always being praising and awarding, and just complimenting me and saying, what constructive criticism. Then later on, saying things like, Byron, you're a shitty filmmaker. Nothing in your fucking life has ever been good, you fucking, and kind of being condescending. And then having me do other jobs on the film project when I was just there to, like, help out in one area. And then just manipulating me and then using me and saying things at the very end, like, people use you more than you think. Or, everybody likes you because you work for free. Type of stuff, and then just blaming me when I was doing jobs that I wasn't like ready for and that it didn't work out. So almost turning me into like a free servant. But I also mention his name because he's definitely hurt me a lot, and he's also one of those people that are good at knowing how to hurt people, but say that he's actually coaching and motivating and making people doing their best when he's actually just a bunch of abusing and bullying and manipulating people, but facading it as being a teacher when he's not that type of person, a user and abuser. So I have no problem using his name because he's a bully, but also it's very true in this style of mental manipulation, which a lot of like really smart people or sociopathic or narcissistic people do, and that's clear for his case as well. Which is, or even like the case of my old boss. There's a sense of, this person is a better worker than me, but I'm going to try to steal their shine. I'm going to use them as much as I can and break their spirit so they don't ever do their best while I'm, profiting off the best that they can do for me. So there are people like that. And then at the very end of the episode, they're planning to turn like the play that that Granddad is doing into a movie, and then Todd Perry just like goes down to his sexual predatory instincts and said, "You just want to fuck," and that's that really. So I think that the end part of it is just like insinuating that Tyler Perry may also be a sexual predator, or that's just how you get far in Hollywood, is you have to do sexual favors for a lot of people to get far ahead. Like, for example, I was like hearing something online about Nickelodeon controversy, like on all that, like how Dana Schneider, somebody who works on a lot of kid shows, like he has a foot fetish. Sometimes when you hear the ending of a lot of like kid shows, you either hear laughing, giggling, or somebody saying, "Oh yeah," or something kind of very like sexually suggestive. And then like other things like, if there's like a pool party with kids, he's willing to kind of be the adult jumping into the pool with his clothes on to be like, I'm the cool guy, and other things like that. Or, like you see like in some shows, I think like Brenda Chung is one of the she's in the Disney Channel, but like sometimes Zach and Cody and a lot of other shows, because my little brother used to watch the shit out of those shitty shows. You see like, like 8 or 9-year-old girls like running around in skirts or with big boots. So it's almost like, if they're going up a staircase, their dress is going up. So obviously there could be a sense of pedophilia, or just like maybe see a clip of her butt. That's for like, that's just so, people like who are at home, who are kind of into that would be more interested in watching the show. Or the other thing is that maybe behind the camera, the directors and the producers and the cinematographer and everybody who's watching the show kind of can see it and then edit those things out, really. So it's definitely true that people get sexualized and people get forced into sexual situations in Hollywood because people have power and stuff like that. And I think that this episode suggests that Tyler Perry is one of those. Obviously, it's all alleged, but I also think that this episode tries to insinuate that there's definitely homoeroticism in Tyler Perry's work, even though he comes off as a Christian. So there's that sense of religious values becoming hypocritical to his own values, and then also just in a way, just trying to use maybe a homosexual front and a religious front to kind of gain his audience. Really, like just as I said, exploiting LGBTQ and exploiting religious causes to make money, and then also deep down, there's also like him trying to have that, and so he can have a lot of power and wealth and be able to do things like sexually assault Granddad and other people that he finds attractive. So it's definitely very like it's a definitely very cerebral episode about Hollywood and power, but also how some people like Granddad are desperate to have that power and that fame at any cause until it's too much. And the cause that's too much for Granddad is potentially having sex with Tyler Perry, which he fortunately chooses not to do, and that's the right thing because that's not something he wants to engage in. So why should people be forced to do sexual favors to get themselves ahead by sexual predators?